What's going on, everybody? You guys are now watching episode 2 of the 300 podcast, along with my co-host. My name is Cohen Rodriguez, and I have here Gilbert Moda, part of the 300 podcast, Encoded Media. Gilbert, how you doing, man? What's going on? Talk to me.
I'm fine, man. We just went through a day of softball, but we out here, man. We committed to
Yeah.
this, man. This is episode 2, like my partner said.
Yes,
And
sir.
we got more content for you guys. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, agree, disagree. But we out here, man.
Alrighty. Now, for one of the first topics that we want to get into in today's episode is going to be what happened in the free agency period, along with the Yankees and Mets. We had a couple of, some great additions onto the team, more one team more than the other team. But we're going to dive into that first and foremost. One of the free agent acquisitions that happened recently was the Mets acquiring the services of JD Martinez on a 1 year deal. I think it was $12 million, not so bad. Gilbert, being the Met fan that you are. I mean, how do you feel about, that acquisition from the Mets?
Hey, man, the acquisition, JD Martinez, he's a professional hitter. It's just a stud.
Is that?
It changes the dynamic of the lineup tremendously. Like I feel like the lineup was already looking shaky. It's like heading into the season. Again, like we said in the first episode, not a lot of moves were being made. I feel like he has a dynamic where he could protect a little bit of Lindor and Alonso's bat as well, transition into like
Yeah.
Francisco Alvarez. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. He should be back in like a week or two. He's rehabbing right now, not injury related, but he didn't really have a spring training, so
Right,
he got to
right. Yeah, he really didn't.
get up to speed. So that's where I'm at right now with JD.
Now, in terms of the Mets, going into the offseason, I felt like Um, I really didn't know really what to expect coming out of the Mets this offseason. I mean, I feel like, personally speaking, this is just my expectation. I feel like they could have made a little bit more moves, but then again, I don't know where and how. If it was going to be via signing free agents. Um, I think there were rumors swirling that the Mets were going to be taking it easy this offseason. But I mean, what were some of your expectations going into it? How did you feel about it? I know that we spoke about it in our previous episode. The link is going to be down in the description, so make sure you guys watch that as well. Our very first episode here in 300 Club. But going into the season, I thought the Mets were going to be pulling off more moves, and they didn't. But what were some of your expectations going into it? I mean, where do you feel like there were some needs? Were you surprised as to how quiet they were? Were you not surprised? I mean, tell me a little bit going into the offseason.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, I feel like definitely the tax, the threshold was a big factor into not committing to a lot of names. Like I mentioned, like if it wasn't Otani Yamamoto, I'm pretty sure they was not gonna go all in on anyone else, like Blake Snell, Montgomery, and a
And they
few
did
others.
try for Yamamoto. They did try. I mean, there was a rumor swirling that he even went to Steve Cohen's house. Like they were there. They were there.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
I don't have high expectations, man. I feel like what we needed and what we still need is pitching, quality starting pitching.
You can have
Maybe
enough pitching.
maybe a bullpen arm or two, but I'm not really concerned with that right now. Just starting pitching only because I feel like we don't have top level prospects right now with pitching, which is probably a first in my lifetime. I feel like the Mets historically are
Yeah.
known to have great pitchers over time. Like we
Yeah.
haven't had an MVP, but we've had Cy Youngs. You know what I mean? So it's like we have a pitcher's ballpark. We have pitchers, but yeah, not right now. We getting our pitchers basically via free agency, and there are some pitchers that were homegrown, but they're not to the expectations or levels we want them to be at. So, but I am glad that we have position players, being top prospects, because we haven't seen that in a while as well. So it's a give and take.
Okay.
We also let's see, we also need maybe another outfielder, or we got to address the third baseman situation. Like, what are we gonna do? Is Beatty gonna be the full time third baseman,
That's a good
or
question.
you know?
Right, right. I mean, I thought I seen Vientos play last year at a Met game, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he hit a home run that game. But something about him just reads that he could be a good player. I don't see a reason as to why, but I mean there has to be some competition there at third, and as we know during our tenure playing softball and such, that competition brings out the best of you.
Yeah,
The impact that JD can have on these young players that the Mets are developing at the moment. I mean, JD's history in the game. I mean, he's a hitter through and
yeah.
through. He's a hitter. He studies the game. He's always talking about hitting. I mean, this is somebody who, if he wants to, can have a great career being a hitting coach as well. I think he's that good. And I think it brings a lot of great opportunities to these young guns. I mean, how do you feel about that? Did you agree? Tell me a little bit more about that.
I feel like he adds a element of leadership to the clubhouse. A person that sees and experience has been part of winning ball clubs.
Yeah,
Uh,
good point. Good point.
he's had great years where he's top 5, top 10 in MVPs. So again, I'm not expecting that to happen this year in terms of production, like a top 10 MVP, but I'm expecting a good year. And again, his leadership will be, priceless because a guy like Beatty can help out with that. A guy like Alvarez can learn from that. A guy like Vientos, if he does get called up, could work with JD. So these are guys that could definitely benefit from an
Yeah,
older.
Luis Angel Acuna too. You never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I definitely agree. Now, one of the I want to say it was one of the most odd moves of the offseason, but definitely it was an acquisition, but not player wise. Actually, you guys have a new coach. Carlos Mendoza, former Yankees best coach. I mean, from what the Yankees have spoke about him, Aaron Boone misses him. I mean, he usually ran spring training for them, and we ended up getting another coach, Brad Osmus. But you guys have Carlos Mendoza now. I think he was a great hire for you guys. What are some of your takeaways early on? You know, I know it's just spring training. I know that the season just started, but the Mets have had their fair share of managers over the past, 10 to 15 years. Things have definitely changed. But now that you guys have Mendoza around, besides the fact that he's a former Yankee, I mean, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like that was a good hire? What are some expectations that you got going in? What have you heard about him? What have been some observations during the season so far? Tell me a little bit more about it.
I don't think he was a great hire, and this might,
What?
ruffle the feathers with some Met fans. Maybe
Hot take,
they
hot take.
agree. It could be 50-50. I've seen both sides of the coin in regards to him so far, at this early point of the season. The reason before I get to his actual, game making decisions, I feel like he wasn't the best hire for various reasons. I feel like, yes, they promised the Mets to be a 2024 team that's going to somewhat compete, but we're not expecting the playoffs. If we do, we're overachieving. We're also not expecting to be, the floor of the league. So I feel like, okay, you have a year to develop some young players, see what you got. And then they promised us that next year we're gonna start spending again, getting free agents, maybe get some contract of the books to give us some financial flexibility, right? So I feel like if you're gonna compete next year and the year after on some, we're like the Dodgers, we're trying to compete for World Series. I don't think that's the best manager, bro.
I mean,
And
yeah.
it's hard to entrust a rookie manager with so much heavy responsibilities, bro. Because what if this year goes bad and doesn't go to the expectations of higher management? Then you're gonna fire a rookie manager to then hire another manager next year, and that kind of messes up the culture within the franchise and the
I
team. So I feel
agree.
like for that reason, he's not the best manager because it's like he's learning, just like as a rookie ball player, like you're learning, even if you're older as a manager, you're still learning. You're learning how to deal with different identities in the ball club. You're learning how to lit a fire on your players, how to maximize your players. These are things that takes time, and I feel like that's better suited for teams that are not going to compete in the next 5 to 10 years. So that's my gripe with it. I feel like it's a big risk hiring him.
Right,
I
right.
feel
And now,
like
uh,
Showalter, I loved him personally. Last year didn't go as planned. I feel like a lot of it was he wasn't managing the same way as the year before, where we won 101 games, I believe it was. One of the best records of all time in the Mets history. So I feel like I don't know. I'm kind of like 50-50 on like analytics leading the way on like decision making for managers versus like the traditional way of like it's a feel. So me, I would have preferred more of a seasoned manager, I feel. So that's my take on it.
I mean, if there's anything, I mean, we can honestly compare the scenarios to Aaron Boone's transition. From what I'm understanding, from what your point is saying, valid points. I don't think I disagree with anything. I mean, you saying that you don't like him as a manager right now, that shocked me. But after hearing what your thoughts are, I could completely understand. Uh, Aaron Boone was a rookie manager, didn't have any experience to my knowledge. I think he was just in the ESPN booth. But he came in, he adopted a team that was still in the playoff hunt, being the Yankees at that time. And I mean, Yankee fans can tell you, I mean, we did not like Boone, bro. There was a lot of, I mean, rookie mistakes as a manager. I can't tell you what they are right now because that was, I think 2017, 2016 is when he took over. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, we were in a transition period too. Like, and once I felt like you set your manager up for failure if you put a rookie manager into a playoff hunt and having all these expectations on them.
Yeah, of course.
Yes. So maybe having Carlos Mendoza taking care of a team that right now they don't, I don't say that they don't see themselves in the playoff picture, but they're not projected to our knowledge at the moment. They're not projected to win it all. They're not there yet. So maybe him being put in a situation like this that allows him to make mistakes and I guess allows him to be, you know, just give him some leeway. I think it could benefit him. Now, in terms of like the relationship with his peers and his colleagues and the players, I've heard nothing but great things about Carlos Mendoza. Hopefully, that it rubs right on the Mets players. Hopefully it contributes. But I see that. Um, Maybe after he gets experience. I mean, from what I also understand, from the New York Post and I think John Heyman and I think all these reporters said before that he's very well liked. He's been ready for a managerial job. Now that he finally has the opportunity, he's literally across boroughs. He didn't even have to go that far. Maybe that can help him get settled in a little bit faster. But then again, you don't know. We're not there behind the scenes to know as to how
You
he's
also
approaching
you
his
also
players.
you also got to consider like New York media as well. That already
Yeah.
comes with pressure. So it's like the margin of error is so small.
Yeah. Naturally, for any manager trying to manage in New York. I mean, look at the
Every
Knicks. They
game,
went through a phase where they had like 6, 7 head coaches at some point. Like and New York media could really eat you up. Like
yeah.
definitely, definitely. And then going into earlier on in the offseason, you guys acquired a former Yankee by the name of Harrison Bader. He was a fan favorite for us for the most part of his tenure here being the Yankees. He was born in New York. Um, how do you feel about that transition out? Before I pass it off to you, I will say that Harrison Bader, I think that the clubhouse is gonna love him. He's such a positive guy, phenomenal defense. I mean, he's very fundamentally sound, whether it's like a pop up. He makes sure that he gets behind the ball, sets his feet, makes sure that he has all his weight shifting towards wherever the direction he wants to throw the ball. Offensively, could use a little bit of help. I'm not gonna lie, but before I dive into further, I mean, how do you feel about the acquisition of Harrison Bader?
Well, to start off, I'll say I feel that the Yankee fans overrated Harrison Bader.
Yeah.
But that's just Yankee nature by default. You guys overrate even guys that don't play like that, like Cuff, IKF. But
And and
that's
and if
another.
you and if you guys yeah, and if you guys feel like the Yankee fans overrated Harrison Bader, I mean, feel free to say that in the comments. We want to hear your opinions. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. We definitely want to hear that. But go ahead. So with the IKF thing,
Um,
yes,
with
it
Bader, I
is.
do I do like the signing for various reasons. One, I found out that he's best friends with Pete Alonso too, and they
Oh
played
wow.
together in Florida
In
in college.
Florida,
They were
yes. Yo,
teammates.
you're right, right, right.
So that's good for the ball club. I feel like it makes Pete even happier to have his man's there. He adds a Gold Glove caliber defensive center fielder. That's very valuable. The hitting, of course, I wish it was way better. But I don't have expectations for him as the offensive player. Maybe with Eric Chavez as the hitting coach, maybe he figures it out in some ways. It does give flexibility to have Brandon Nimmo play left field now instead of center field. By no way, I think Brandon Nimmo was a bad center fielder, but you could put him at left, less pressure. He could cover a lot of ground already, so that could be a strength in left field too.
I
So
didn't even know that you viewed Nemo that way. Honestly, I always viewed him as a center fielder. I knew he was,
no,
previously
I
he might
mean
have
me
been injury
too,
prone.
but I feel like many folks would say that his arm is not the caliber of a center fielder. So maybe left field will be better, and then adding the ability to have so much range from playing center field this whole career so far, I feel like it could be a weapon in left field. And then you have Starlet Marte at right. So now when you look on paper, you have three great agile outfielders.
Absolutely.
And
With speed.
at
Starting
some
Monster
point,
can still fly.
they were all center fielders. So why not?
Right, right. No, I agree. I mean, defensively, I think that the Mets have a phenomenal lineup. I mean, Francisco Lindor is platinum gold glove winning shortstop. I don't think Pete Alonso is a slouch on first base, to be honest with you. McNeil's versatile. You already spoke about the outfielding. I definitely believe that the Mets have good defense. The pitching, I mean, they're gonna need it. They're gonna honestly need it. They're gonna need everybody to, put it. But again, the expectations might not all be that high this year. We'll see. But anything
Yeah,
can happen. At the end of the day, you just need to get hot at the right time
yeah.
and see where it goes from there. To be honest with you, so now that we can finally wrap up all of the offseason discussions, now we want to get into the first week of the season. First off, I want to start off on a positive note. The Yankees 4-0 against Houston. First off, I just want to say, first off, the schedule makers. This is to the schedule makers. Now, if you guys share this opinion, go ahead and put it in the comments. Starting the season off 4-0 against Houston. Well, That was great. But starting a 4 game set against Houston to begin the season in Houston, like that was, dude, like
You didn't like
I
that?
didn't, nah. You know what
I
it
like.
was, bro? You know what it is? Like, as a Yankee fan, it's been like 6 to 7 years. I can honestly say that the Houston Astros have owned us. I gotta call it for what it is. They've owned us, you know? So of course, going into the season where, we have high expectations to start off against Houston. I didn't want to start off the season with on some bad juju. Like I didn't want us to be, start off on the wrong foot. But no, I mean, let's talk about the positives. I don't want to talk about the past no more. It's a whole new season, right? But we started off 4-0. I mean, the pitching was phenomenal. We were coming back. Juan Soto's impact, you can see why this guy's a generational talent. I mean, not only does he do it all offensively, but he made a great defensive throw to help secure the win. I think that was game 3 or game 2. Um, he has impacted the players. Oswaldo Cabrera, who, I mean, let's be honest. Now, I feel like I relate to this guy so much because he switch hits and he plays every position and he's young. And you're telling a kid, a young kid, to do that at the major league level, like to switch hit is already hard. To play every position in the grandest stage of them all, it's extremely hard. You have absolutely zero margin for error. But Oswaldo Cabrera was saying reportedly that he was picking the brains of Juan Soto, and there's nobody else better that he should do that on. Honestly, just Juan Soto is Juan Soto. But we started off 4 games. It was 4-0, phenomenal, loved it. We definitely needed to get off on the right foot. I would have taken 3-1. I would have taken a split. Anything else besides that would have, definitely we would have been having a different conversation. But we started off 4-0. Marcus Stroman pitched really, really good. I can't wait to see him pitch in Yankee Stadium, dude. I'm not gonna lie. Like you guys had him on the Mets. How do you feel? Like, how do you feel about Marcus Stroman? Do you feel like he could be successful in the Yankees? How was he on the Mets? Give me your take on Marcus Stroman before I pass it off to you.
Me personally, I like Stroman. I don't think he's an ace. I think he could be a good number two, a great number three. My concern, I mean, he's probably gonna prove me wrong, but you never know. My concern is that he's a contact pitcher. He's not a pitcher that's striking out 10K every start, you know?
Good point. Great point. Great point.
So now that he's a contact pitcher in the hitter's ballpark, that's my concern. It's like, damn, like how many fly balls are you gonna allow, you know?
And it can go downhill from there too.
Oh, it can go
Depending on the
downhill
type of
fast.
right, well, depending on the type of person that he is, if he starts diving into, which I mean, Marcus Stroman is known for, clapping back at the media on social media. So hopefully, he's grown from that. I mean, everything that I've seen since is that he's grown. I don't know if he's had these sorts of incidents while he was in the Mets. Um, but
I'll
it
say this.
is what it is. Yeah,
I'll say this. I'll say whether you like him or hate him, the only thing that I can for sure say, he's a gamer. He
I
loves to play
agree.
baseball. He's locked in, you know? Like
I
you don't
agree.
have to, you know.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And I think that the Yankees just needed players like that. Like the vibes of him, Verdugo. I think we try to do it with JD, but I mean, Josh Donaldson is not the type of person you want on your team. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like, yeah, when he was in Toronto, like if he's performing.
If he's prime Josh Donaldson, of course.
Right, yes, but I mean, if he's just the Josh Donaldson that's just being problematic, always trying to stir things up, like nah, and that's what we had. But we have these players like a Verdugo who can instill confidence on players. From the way that he speaks. He's a player's guy. Marcus Stroman being the gamer that he is. I think these were just great acquisitions, not only on a talent level, but on a character level
Personality
as
wise
well.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely need those type of studs in the locker room. On the other hand, unfortunately, the Mets started off 0-3 against the Brewers. It's still early. I'm a Yankee fan, but we're not cutting ass on the Mets. We're not. This is not going to be the type of podcast, but unless things go terribly wrong, I think we owe it to each other to hold our teams accountable. But this is not the type of podcast that you guys are gonna be listening, but we're gonna be bashing each other. That's not the case. It's nothing but positive vibes here. But on the other hand, the Mets, they started off 0-3. It's still early. I mean, they were playing against the Brewers, who is not projected in anybody's book to take it all or even probably make playoffs. Um, but what are some early season concerns? What are some of your observations going in? There's something that I do want to ask you about involving McNeil and Reese Hoskins, but tell me a little bit about from what you've seen. How do you feel about the season so far?
All right, so that's a great question. Before I answer that, you made a point that I want to speak about
Oh,
briefly.
please do, please do.
So I asked you if you was talking about the scheduling with the Astros and the Yankees, and you asked if you liked it. You said no. Me on the flip side, I love it, and I love it for various reasons. I'm looking at it from a bigger scale, from a baseball point of view, right? I wish MLB did more things like how NBA does it or football does it. Like, let's say the season starts, you put in premier matchups, you get higher viewership like that. Astros and Yankees been killing each other for the last 7 years, making it a rivalry, right? So now you starting the season, a lot of excitement from both sides. You got Soto, you got the Astros trying to get back to the mountain, that's good baseball right there. Whether you get swept, whether you lose and you win, that's two quality high teams that you love to see if you play. And I feel like every team should start with the arrival at least to start the year, something like that. Like make it exciting for the fans to tune in. Like respectfully, like I'm a Mets fan, but I'm not trying to watch the Brewers right now, bro. Nothing against
Right,
them, but I,
right,
I would rather see the Mets face the Phillies or the Braves, the Dodgers, the Giants, the Cardinals. Teams that we have history with. That
right, right,
that
right.
that'll get me excited. Maybe I go to the park. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Now, a valid point. I mean, if you guys agree with Gilbert's take, I mean, go ahead and share it right there in the comments. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. But no, that was definitely a valid point. Definitely, I see exactly what you're saying. I think that truthfully, now, not all Yankee fans are gonna agree. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like to compete. I think that I've just been through so much heartbreak, in the hands of the Astros,
yeah,
that I honestly did not want to start off the season on a bad note. And I'm glad that
yeah.
we did it. We could finally put that to bed. But definitely going into the season, like, I was a little scared. I didn't want to get off on the wrong foot, but we did
Um,
it. We won for zip.
yeah.
Juan Soto today, clutch hit against Josh Hader. Um, I just, from what I've seen, my observations so far on this 4-0 start is that there's no quit on this team. I mean, they came back twice, if I'm not mistaken. Back then, I'm not gonna lie, I think Yankee fans could go ahead and agree with this. Anytime that we were in a deficit, especially in the hands of the Astros, I feel like it was a climb to get back. Excuse me. I feel like it was a climb to get back into the game. For real, for real, for real. I feel like when we was down 3-0, we had a scratch and claw to, you know, try to get the lead, and then the Astros would go ahead and score more. And it was like a cat and mouse game, and we just couldn't get the mouse, bro, no matter what. Um, but this team looks and feels different. I mean, I'm not there, but from what I see, they look and feel different, man. Like they look a
And
little
the,
bit more
and the thing
confident.
is, the thing is that the players that you guys added provide so much identity to the team.
Yeah,
Something that the Yankees been lacking for years,
yeah,
right? So now
absolutely.
you have hitters in the lineup that are gonna battle pitchers. They're not gonna just swing at three pitches and be out. They're gonna go to full count, foul some pitches, prolong at bats. That is contagious, and I can say that that's important because in 2022, as a Met fan, that was the identity of the team. You down five, we coming back because the team is fighting. The team is not quitting. The team is not giving out easy outs. So if you have that dynamic as a team, I don't see why a team doesn't have a shot to win it all. That's just how I look at it.
Right, right. I mean, we're gonna get into projections and everything.
Yeah.
But this team definitely looked, and I don't want to sound biased, but there's was something lacking within the past 2 to 3 years, even before, I mean, since 2017, and I feel like we got it this year. And I think it was just maybe it could have been a switch of approach, analysis, analytics, how they're really like it could have been a lot, but the team looks like they're functioning a little bit differently, and I like that. I like that. I feel like we definitely needed those type of studs.
To go back to your point with the question you asked me about the Mets 0-3 start. Wow. I mean, I didn't expect us to be 0-3, but it's all right. Like I said earlier in the first episode, I don't have high expectations, but damn. Um, my concern so far, and I guess it can be taken out of context because it's so early in the season. My judgment is on Carlos Mendoza as a manager so far, like his decision making. Heading into the season, I feel like there was a last roster spot for the big league roster, right? And they chose DJ Stewart, no knock against him, over Vientos. And I'm like, okay, so
They're
in a
always
week or
gonna
two,
prioritize the pitcher.
no,
My
he's an
personal opinion,
outfielder. He's an
right?
outfielder.
Oh, is he? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he
He's
was
a
a
right
relief pitcher.
fielder and he's a lefty hitter too. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So my issue with that is like, okay, so you have JD Martinez that'll come back in about 2 weeks. you wouldn't rather have Vientos in the major leagues for 2 weeks and at least see what you get from him? Now you
Yeah.
send him back, and it's like, damn, now you're going backwards from last year when he got called up. He's already again going into the minor leagues. That kills morale in a little bit. And it kind of sends a message in the wrong way to certain prospects, I guess, even though prospects wouldn't probably express that because they have a lot to lose.
Yeah.
But it's like, damn, like as a fan, I want Vietas to get his fair shot. And it's like I don't understand the decision making. And then the second point is I think it was yesterday. Yes, yesterday, game two against the Brewers. You don't start Brett Baty already. Game two of the season, and you're already not starting
Oh,
your
yeah.
potential cornerstone third baseman against the lefty pitcher. Like it's too
The
early for that, in my
the
opinion. It's
kids
too
need to
early.
play. Like you
You
need to
gotta
when you bring up these
play.
kids, they gotta play. Absolutely.
How can
And
you? Mhm.
to piggyback off the Vientos thing, you know what that does, and I'm sure you're very familiar with this terminology, is that when that prospect that you have is major league ready,
Yeah.
but let's say he's not gonna get as many at bats in the major leagues, right? He's not gonna get the burn, right?
Mhm.
You send him down to AAA, so that way he gets all of his at bats. I mean, I get it, but then again, I don't get it because essentially what that player becomes is a quadruple A player. You know, and but it's true. It's absolutely true. I mean, at the end of the day, and it's hard because these kids need to play. They need consistent playing time so they can show you what they got. Um, when you're bringing them down to the minors, I understand. You want to get them their burn, their at bats and everything, and then when the opportunity comes, but AAA pitching is not the same as Major League pitching. If anything, AA pitching is probably the closest to Major League pitching. And it's
Think so? Why you say that?
because I feel like a majority of the major prospects and a lot of like the competition, like for example, I feel like in low A and single A, they try to perform. The best prospects always move up, and 9 times out of 10 they go to the double A. I feel like there's a lot of competition in double A because I think that really determines whether or not you're going to be a major league player and what's gonna make you become a AAA player. You know what I'm saying? I think that that's really where the difference is, and I feel like from a competition standpoint, I just feel like there's a lot more internal competition amongst the players at that level. A lot of the top prospects are in Double A. Once that prospect, dibs and dabs with AAA Major League, they tend to float around there somewhat. But I think double A is just the competition. I mean, you have younger competition, you have people fresh out of college. I feel like people are hungrier there. Once you get to triple A, you kind of, I mean, I've never been there. I've never been drafted. I've never been in the minors. I just want to make that clear. I'm just talking out the ass. But from my perspective, I feel like there are gonna be at least approaching, if not approaching half the roster that they kind of know whether or not they're gonna make it to the majors. I mean, there's conversations with agents, expectations and everything. Obviously they still have a shot, no doubt, but you more or less have an idea. In double A, I feel like everybody's hungry and it's still fair game for anybody. And that's how I feel. I mean, what do you think? Do you think I know we're getting a little bit off topic here, but what minor league level do you feel like is the most competitive or the most beneficial to somebody who just wants to compete?
That's an interesting take, bro. I never really, I would say, heard that perspective. That's interesting though. In a sense, I agree. I wouldn't say I agree all the way, but I agree that top levels prospects typically aren't double A, and if they're really that good, they might just skip double A, meaning triple A, sorry, and go to the majors. Versus what triple A is players that are composed of either they already been there for a couple of years, they're probably former major league players that haven't figured it out. But that's where I feel like triple A is a little harder because you also have former major league experienced players. So you got players that are a little older, more veteran, more wise, whether that's pitching, whether that's hitting approach, everything. So it just depends. Yeah, that's my take on it.
Okay, good. Now, another hot take. We're gonna get into one of the fun elements here on the 300 podcast is that towards the end of the episode, we always try to ask each other random questions involving the MLB. Being that the season just started, our expectations are currently high for some of us, but we want to predict what our for right now, just for the sake of it, we just want to predict what our final four remaining teams will be at towards the end of the season as they head towards the ALCS. Had a little bit of time to think about it. I don't want to sound biased, but I do have the Yankees on there number one. Um, in terms of who they can probably compete against. Though I don't, I'm gonna put it like this: it's not what I think is gonna happen; it's what I would want to happen. I want the Astros in the playoffs. I want us to finally get over the hump. Like that's just the competitor in me. I mean, here I am saying that I probably didn't want to stay face them to start off the season, but I would want us to beat them. I don't want to continue on this path where the Astros can own us. Like I want us to get over that hump. That's what I got going on in the ALCS. In terms of the NLCS, I typically for playoffs, I always go for an underdog because I always feel like, and this could be a hot take, I always feel like the team that's most unexpected ends up making the run. I feel like that's been a trend. Um, but not this year. I think it's gonna be Atlanta and the Dodgers and the NLCS. I think it's gonna go to Game 7,
Mm.
and I have Atlanta beating the Dodgers. I think they're hungrier. I think their team is much more complete. I think their pitching staff, more specifically the bullpen, I think they're pretty solid. Their hitters 1 through 9, I feel like it's more well balanced. Um, Now, in terms of Yankees and Astros, I want the Yankees to get over the hump. I don't want to get into the World Series, but a Yankees and Braves World Series, bringing it back to 1990s, renewing that rivalry, two good, complete teams. I would love to see that. What are your thoughts and share what you think? I mean, what your opinions will be.
For the AL, it's a little hard. I feel like the NL is a little easier to tell. With the AL, I say it's hard because it's essentially four teams that I can see be in the final two.
You said you think the NO is easier
I
to
feel like
predict.
yes,
Okay.
I'll tell you why in a few. So with the AL, I feel like there's four teams that could be the remaining two. And it just depends on several factors. Like if Garrett Cole is healthy and comes back in time, the Yankees have a good record by then. Sure, I could see them being in the final four. If they don't get it together because injuries and whatnot, I do see the Orioles being there.
Ooh.
And I
Hot take,
predict
hot
the
take, hot
Orioles.
take, hot take, hot take.
I predict the Orioles. Remember this? What day is today? March 31st. I predict the Orioles will have the best record in the American League.
Hot take, hot take, hot take.
Hey, I like that team, bro. They have a lot of great young talent, bro.
Ooh, they
Um,
are good. They're
and
young. They're
then
young.
and then the other flip side, I also see is between Houston and Texas. I would like to side with Texas, one, because they beat them last year. Two, the factor that gets them over the hump is that you adding a Jacob DeGrom back healthy. That changes the whole dynamic
Let's
from the
see. Let's see.
if he's healthy, of
And it's a
course.
shame because I want to see him in there.
Oh yeah, it's
Him,
another.
Scherzer. They have
Mm-hmm.
Jack Leiter. They have Kumar in the minors. Like they have arms. John Gray. I mean, he's not all that, but he's still a pitcher. They got
And that
hitters.
lineup, bro, that
That
lineup is
lineup
insane.
is so versatile. My God.
1 through 9,
My God.
bro. They all slug, bro. So that's why I give them the edge, and they're the defending champions. So you can't go
Do
wrong
you
with them.
feel like the Astros might have, like gotten a little worse?
I mean, they had a hater. That's a big weapon.
Yeah, but I feel like
They
on
still
the
have
offense on the offensive side, I don't know that they just had a lot of movement. So they had a couple prospects
they
coming
still
up.
have Jordan Alvarez. That's a top three MVP on lock.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
They have
Yeah.
all two, but you two can't sleep on me. You're not gonna lie, bro. Another hot take. We could dive in another time with this. I think Altuve might go down as top three, top five second baseman of all time, based on accolades, based on his impact of winning. Like cheating scandal aside, who could argue with that? He has
I
the
don't
ring, he has
I
the
don't
hits, he has the batting average, he has the MVP. That's hard to look against, bro.
I plead the fifth. I
I mean,
plead the fifth.
you
I
might have
don't
your bias. I'm removing the bias because it doesn't hurt me as much, so I understand. But I
You're
just feel
right,
like
right. That's what it is. I don't wanna,
it's not many
I
second basemen you can say in history that have won MVP. Like that's hard, bro. That's tough.
yeah.
And,
I mean
and
that's
and
a
he's so small, bro. Like that's just berserk in my mind. Like this dude is like 5', 5'8", 5'7".
I
And he's
respect that.
a monster, bro.
And he wasn't drafted high. I respect
He
where
wasn't
his journey
drafted.
and
He was
everything,
into
but
that. Yeah, yeah,
I'm sorry, dude. He took the MVP away from Judge,
yeah. Of
and
course. Yeah.
they cheated. And
Yeah.
if you guys agree, make sure you guys write that in capital letters down in the comments because I'm not about to give, until he retires, I don't want to give him his flowers at the end of the day.
and
If he
then
if he gives the MVP back to Judge, maybe, but at the end of the
and
day, bro, I'm
then
sorry. It's been seven
Mhm.
years of me hating that team, and
Yeah, I
he's
feel
still on
you.
that team, and it's really hard for me to give him his flowers. It's not gonna happen today. I wasn't
And
prepared for that. It's not gonna
and
happen. But hot
then
take, and I can agree with him being a top three second baseman of all time. I can agree with that. I give him that, but I'm not gonna give him all that praise, cheater.
and then with the National League, I feel like it's more clear cut because I feel like the level from the top teams that are expected to be there versus the B type teams
Yeah,
is a gap. So I feel like ideally and prediction wise, it'll be Braves and Dodgers.
that
Um,
I would
but
love to write that on paper, like pen that down, like for real. But
and the teams that I can see that could get hot and take over, it could be the Phillies. They have a great core, pitching, hitting. They hungry. I can see the D-backs. I don't know. For some reason, I can't see them repeating their success last year. I feel like they overachieved, and that's not a knock on them, but
they
I don't
remind me
know.
of like that Giants team where like they will make a run one year, then the next year they'll
Yeah,
tank. I don't wish them the worst. I wish them nothing but great success until they face the Yankees or the Mets. To be honest, um, I feel like they need to prove it to me again before I consider them as
yes,
like contenders.
yes, I agree.
I think they're talented. I think they're talented as hell.
Hmm.
But I do think that they need to prove it. I mean, last year it's not a secret that last year we feel like, there was a team that got hot and made the run. And we all know if you follow baseball, if you get into the playoffs and you get hot, you can make the run. And I feel like they definitely did that. Now, I'm sorry, they have to prove it to me once again in order for me to take them a little bit more seriously. Until then, I view them as the Giants, like that team that like they make the run one year, then the next year they do bad, and then they make the run again. There's a fine line between that. I mean, the acquisitions of Jordan Montgomery, I think that was phenomenal. I mean, I don't think he's ace material, but he's a very reliable starter. Um, but we'll see. We're gonna get into all that in a different episode. If you guys have any suggestions, any questions, comments, anything you guys are willing to share, make sure that you guys go ahead and write it in the comments. Also, we are gonna be continue recording and putting out more content for you guys. We'll love if you guys can go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe, do it all. But until then. That'll be it for episode 2. We got a lot more episodes, a lot more fun things that we got going on that's currently in the works. Make sure you guys follow us on all of our platforms on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, do it all at the 300 Club Podcast. Gilbert, is there anything that you want to say before we go ahead and close this episode out?
Man, I'm just excited that baseball's back, man. We got things to talk
It's
about.
back.
Again,
It's
check
back.
check check this podcast, check us out, comment, subscribe, and we're gonna spice it up as the season goes on, man. This
And
is
we
me,
do
Gilbert.
take we yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off, but we do accept parlay. Make sure you guys go ahead and send those bets in. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead and share some. But I'm sorry, Gilbert. Go ahead and do your sign off. My bad. My bad.
Nah, we good, bro. That's all I had to say. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone who's listening. Share again, subscribe, and we'll see you back soon.